Joining me today is Mizell, aka TTB Media, and that's the Tech Boy Media, TTB. Welcome to the show, Mizell. How are you?
Well, thank you.
I barely made it in time for the Zoom. Shout out to my new friends over at the new location of Chicken Coop at the corner of North Line and Dix in Southgate, Michigan. Shout out. I said I'd give them a shout out. I just came from Lunner or Linner, term I invented back in 2006. It's like brunch, except it's between lunch and dinner.
Oh, nice.
Right? Lunner. Yeah. So I just had Lunner and had to rush back to make it in time for because we were originally to record a couple hours ago. But what was it with the microphone you had?
Oh, they were supposed to be shipped last night, but they got left at the post office. So I had to go get them.
Well, hey, better late than never, as they say, right?
Yeah.
So back this thing up, right? Beep, beep, beep. So, Mizell, tell us, where were you born and raised? Where are you now? Any significant places you've been to in between? That sort of thing.
Oh, nice. So I was born in Houston, Texas, and raised there my entire life. I've been to the Woodlands, which is a subreddit. A community in Houston, Texas, a suburb, and I worked there for a few months as well. But that's the only place I've lived. I've traveled across the United States. I've been to Colorado. Went skiing there once.
Did you go up the mountain, Rocky Mountain High? Right.
Yeah, we drove there. Not to Colorado, but when we got there, we went to the car and drove up a mountain.
Yeah, I did that too, and indeed, it was kind of warm when I started, and it was snowing up at the top.
Yeah, it was already cold because it was dark outside when we got there, so it's pretty scary. I've been on a road trip to Florida when I was 5, so all the states from Texas to Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, I've been through them as well, but only stayed in Florida, I believe. I was 5. I've been to Ohio and Kentucky a lot of times to go to the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum. Those are the states I've been to. When I was
good.
In New York, but I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I'm in Wyandotte, Michigan, a southern downriver suburb of Detroit, Michigan. Born at the next city over, but lived in Wyandotte my entire life. I've been to most of the states, not all of them, as travels and whatnot, and out of the country a few times. But like you, I kind of, so far anyway, you're young, you got plenty of time to move. And we'll get into your age in a minute. I'm 63. I even though I'm not fond of the winters, and indeed, for the record, we're recording Saturday, February the 7th. I mean, literally, the Chicken Coop just opened that new location today. I just happened to go there. That's kind of weird, but so yeah, it's winter here, and I'm not fond of the winters, but I do like the area. Do you see yourself, since you've gone a bunch of places, wanting to move somewhere else?
Well, I like the great state of Texas, but I also do like the cold. So if I did move, maybe somewhere in North Texas. Texas is pretty big.
I'll tell you what, let's trade places. I want warmer.
Maybe Colorado as well, because there's a lot more you can do in the cold there. Skiing, I think they have all 4 seasons. I haven't been to the East a lot, but I'd like to visit maybe like New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, see what the falls look like over there.
Yeah, there's plenty of place. Pine Knob is the most famous location here in Michigan for skiing, but we also semi close to me, Brighton, Michigan has slopes. So plenty of skiing here in Michigan too, even though we're mostly flat and a whole lot of lakes. But anyway, yeah, your age, you're only what, 19?
Yep, I turned 19 in November.
Yep. So that's one of the reasons that I was intrigued and desirous of speaking with you at your young age. You've been a lot of places, so you've got wisdom of travel. You're the CEO of Tech Boy Media. So, yeah, it's not like you're just some young, dumb punk.
Yeah.
What made you motivated to start TTB Media?
Right. So for the Tech Boy Media, I was 13 years old. It was in between the middle of COVID in 2020, and I wanted to start getting out there and reviewing devices, getting cell phones to test, and then being able to keep it for myself. And then once I had my own phone, I'd sell the other ones that I got out there. So I did research on how it was supposed to act, and it said that a good way to start a business was by starting a blog, starting a website. So I did that. I bought the domain. I started putting out all the content all the way up until 2022. That's when I started the podcast. I come on and talk about technology and then technology and culture. Because technology is important, but there's other things I also like to talk about. And I started seeing all the websites that I was reviewing, websites like The Verge, Gizmodo, PC Mag, etc. Because I wasn't getting lots of devices because I was pretty small, so I had to go out and do my own research. They all started pushing agendas that didn't align with me as well. So that's how I decided to get into more of the Christian political commentary as well. These websites, they started putting out things about abortion being good. And I was like, I don't stand for that. And I thought, this is a good way I can share my faith and share my beliefs and opinions with people. And it's a niche that isn't really covered. I mean, there's millions of tech channels across the internet, millions of tech websites. They all cover the same stuff. So it's a way that I can differentiate myself from other publications.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot easier these days to start up a company. My first tech startup, Super Simple Computer Enterprises, in the late 80s, early 90s. The early days of websites, I built my website by hand coding HTML code. So yeah, I'm old school, you're new school, I guess.
Yeah, the website was built off of Google Blogspot because it was free. It offered basically free hosting, but the themes just weren't the best. So a few weeks ago, we transferred everything over to WordPress.
Full disclosure, I hate WordPress. I'm glad you're comfortable with it, and a lot of people are. My JosephMLeonard.us site, built by my publisher, is built on WordPress, and I barely ever update it because I hate WordPress. But my terrorstrikes.info site is built through Wix. And I love the WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get kind of building blocks thing that you drag and drop things on the screen, and what you see is what you get indeed, and that's what get published. WordPress to me is too much like old school HTML building. I've been there, done that. I don't want that complication anymore.
That is true. WordPress is a little bit more complicated than Blogspot was. And some of the themes that I wanted, they just don't work as well, or they're super expensive, and I'm not going to pay for a theme without having seen it before. So right now, the site's on a basic-ish theme. It's probably going to be updated in a few weeks or months. But for Wix, it just didn't transfer over all the content over. I have to manually copy and paste 600 articles and pages in. The links wouldn't load. And they're pretty expensive as well. So I wanted to make this a seamless transfer to make people be able to still use the website while we were doing all the data changes and backups while saving money.
I hear you about transferring because I was going to transfer my josephmleonard.us site from WordPress to Wix, but there's not a simple way to do that.
Yeah.
Indeed, you've got to completely rebuild it. And as a tech guy, computers are supposed to make our lives simple. You know, Excel and Lotus, you could do a like format and port them between WordPress, WordPerfect, Ami Pro, MS Word. They all have different file formats that are proprietary, but you could always format them to something like a shareable or compatible. And I don't get why there isn't a standardized website type extension to save as WEB. So yeah, I should be able to take any site from Wix, save it as a web, and move it to WordPress or vice versa, or to GoDaddy or to Google or to whomever. Why is this? It's difficult because the money motivation. They want to keep people locked in.
Yeah, the ecosystem lock-in is pretty remarkable. It's very hard. I was using Adobe has their own website builder, and you can kind of scroll through so that the images and text kind of loads up over what you're seeing. And it's basically my media page. So it's at thetechboy.org, and then you can go click the About, drop down, you will see this page that I'm talking about. It's just pictures of me on the podcast and pictures of the things that I've done on YouTube, pictures of technology. Basically, everything that I do is on this one website. Unfortunately, it has an Adobe watermark on it, and I've tried to save it, and the CSS and HTML doesn't load, so I can't host it myself. And even if I were to pay Adobe to take off the watermark, it's still hosted there for some reason. There's no way to copy and paste the site. So I do think that interoperability is very frustrating, though I wouldn't be in favor of, I guess, some sort of legislation for it.
Absolutely. I'm very much conservative when government, butt out. Exactly. Let the market, but indeed. And that's where somebody, Adobe was good with that for a while too. There's different software companies that often will allow you to switch from a doc to a PDF to a SAM Ami Pro format or Word. Why doesn't somebody? Hey, there's a niche, right?
Yeah,
Fill a need. Why isn't some private? And speaking of tech, why you see me leaning over, I've got a piece of tech. My call blocker system has come unplugged, and I was trying to plug that back in again. So that's why you see me leaning over. But yeah, computers are supposed to make life easier. I joke all the time, macro suck, Winslow 11, pathetic operating system. Windows 10 was working perfectly fine, put Windows 11 on, all kinds of problems.
I haven't really experienced many of those problems that people are talking about. It basically feels the same to me. The only thing that I guess I miss would be the volume. When you put it up on Windows 10, you could pause your media. On Windows 11, you can't do that. And the live tiles, those are also gone, though I don't think people used them a lot. I think the problem with some of these operating systems is that people basically just use the web for everything, so it doesn't really matter which operating system that they're using. My cell phone has 12 gigabytes of RAM and a Snapdragon processor. It's probably more powerful than some Windows 10 laptop that came out 5 or 6 years ago. And people are just using that same website to do Zoom calls and basic web browsing. So it doesn't really matter what they do with the operating.
That, and indeed, as you said, the smartphone, there's a lot of places now not even doing browser capable sites. It's all app locked into an app. You must use an Android or an Apple or a whatever. You've got to use a smartphone app to be able to interact. And again, I'm old school and traditional when it comes to that. You need to be available on every platform. Why are you limiting your audience? I don't get that. Your
Yeah, it
thoughts?
is very annoying when stuff like that happens. Though I do like that we still have software programs. I just wish that they still existed on computers as well. When you look at the computer software market space, it's just essentially a web application wrapper. The top applications for Windows would be, say, like I think ChatGPT has an application which is just a website. I'm looking at my computer here. We have Telegram down here, basically just a website. Wikipedia, the official client, I think it's just a website. You can't really download anything. So
Right.
everything.
Now, you mentioned Telegram. I
Mhm.
actually use Telegram, and Discord used to be actual programs. I didn't know Telegram went to web based now. I might go back to them. I stopped using Telegram because I couldn't access it through my website. And there's
Oh,
I
it's a
have L Player, is it LD Player 9 on my, so I can interact with my Blink cameras. They're another one, the Blink camera system, app based. But
mhm.
the LD player allows you to emulate a phone situation on your Windows system and load a smartphone app there. And I do that for my Blink cameras. So, but I shouldn't have to jump through these hoops.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, especially when you consider that before 2007, no one would have even thought about doing anything that's nonsense like this. And I guess it's one of my pet peeves. We look at the spy toy industry from like 2011-ish. You had all these like direct to hardware toys that you could play with without needing an application. Our website, I had a watch. It had a computer software on it, but if you didn't use the software, because I got it pretty old, so the software was outdated, the watch still worked for a little bit. But now, like all the remote control toys, they need Wi-Fi and some sort of phone app. All of the home security systems, basic home security systems, if you don't get a professional one, it's basically an app. You need to have a phone, have a Ring doorbell camera, whatever the ripoffs are. If you get a smartwatch, you obviously need to have a app there. You can't have it stand alone by itself.
Yeah.
Um, all of the
Apple and Microsoft, I think, are the two worst to proprietary attempt to lock in. And like I said, with the Blink cameras situation. I was thinking of something else. But again, yeah, that's the proprietary mindset. I mean, I go back to the bag phone. My first phone was a bag phone in my DeLorean. So way back when, and now it's mini computer that pretends to be a phone. And indeed, the old Nokia phone I had its own CD. You had to load their software to interact with their phone. Unlike today, like Wondershare, you can port phones between each other, back up any type of phone and restore it. A phone book, the phone catalog on our phones should be savable to CSV back to Excel again, a comma delimited space file and port to any phone, but they don't want to let you do that. They want to lock you in.
Yeah, backup is it's surprisingly frustrating. Or if you want to go clone a phone, unless you're moving from phone to phone using something like Samsung Smart Switch. I think even some of the software that they use in cell phone forensics today, I think it's called Celebrite, where they connect the phones and try to hack into them from criminals. That was actually developed by some people in a phone carrier somewhere who wanted to help transfer people's phones because back then they didn't even have standardized operating systems like Android or iOS. And even now with Android and iOS, the applications don't all transfer across each other. The applications that you can only run on Android, you can only run on iOS. And I'm not going to go out and buy an iPhone just so I can run like one or two applications. I wish that they would access over the internet because most of these applications, they're basically portals to the web. Instagram, for one, is it's basically just a website, but they force you to use the application if you want to use the full experience. The website's kind of just there for consumption.
Yeah. Several social media platforms. Right. I only bothered, like I said, I left Telegram because I didn't want the extra program
Mhm.
tying up memory space and CPU cycles on my system. So I deleted Discord and Telegram. Social media, I only interact online, but you mentioned Instagram. LinkedIn is the same way too. There are only certain functions will only work on the app, not
Yeah,
the website. And why are you doing that to your customer?
yeah, it is pretty frustrating when they don't look like that. And even on the Android side, people say this is true. I'm not really sure. I rarely, if ever, take any pictures from inside of a social media application. If I'm going to take a picture, I would just use the regular camera. But I haven't really tested this out. But people say that the camera application in Snapchat or Instagram is not as good as the camera application in the iPhone version of that. And for some reason, developers put some of the most powerful applications only behind iOS. There's this application called Yik Yak, which is like an anonymous social media platform. For some reason, only on iOS, even though it could work just as well on Android. It used to work just as well on Android, apparently 10 years ago. Like certain games, they only come out to iOS. Certain of those softwares, like there's this weather application that was really popular. I think it shut down, but it only worked on iOS, and I don't really know why they did that.
As a former IT guy, I get that. Well, if you've got to code it well and it will should work on all of them, don't code it for one specific. If you code it well enough generically, it will port. You don't want to have to code for OS and code for Windows and code for Apple and have 20 billion different versions. But unfortunately, that competition almost requires it if you really care about your customers wanting your product.
Yeah, the problem with that is that there's no easy way to port. Like, I wish there's a software that could allow you to port with that as well. You know, Windows, it makes sense. They have about 80 something percent of the market share. So that's why most of the applications don't come to Macs. People but mostly use those just for Google Docs and Netflix anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But on the cell phone front, people, I guess, have grown content with the capabilities of their phone and don't really use them to their full abilities. They only use like certain applications like Instagram or Snapchat and I guess the phone app and iMessage, and they'll be fine with that. And then like there's literally no reason for them to upgrade people between the iPhone
Right,
13 and iPhone 17 if they're not really using the full power of the device. So that's
right.
probably why developers don't focus on that.
That's a generational thing too, because again, me being older, I'm old school. I want a phone to be a phone. Now, yeah, I like SMS texting, so that's great, but I use this as a phone and a text device. I I do have a few apps, but I almost never use them. I use my laptop for that. I want my computer to be a computer, and I want my damn phone to just be a working phone.
Oh yeah. I think probably Gen Z probably uses their phone more than a laptop. Some people don't even have laptops, or if they have one,
Well,
it's just a tablet, which is a blown up phone. Personally, my computer for some reason was kind of slow, so it's actually easier to edit video on my phone than it would be on my computer, which is why I would require a
that's a
newer.
shame. Yeah, yeah. I do my show via my laptop. I kind of cheat. I use Zoom to be my studio rather than any of the other studios out there, and I use Applian technology file conversions programs and audio capture and whatnot, as well as NCH Suites
Oh, that's fun.
video pad. I love their video pad. It's very easy for video editing, and I do that on my laptop.
Oh yeah, NTH Suite makes some fun software. It's actually interesting that they still make software for PC that's not just all web based. Like Canva. Canva has video editing and image editing, but it's just all on the web. So if the internet were to go down, your computer's basically useless.
Right. You're locked into what if you don't want Wi-Fi? What if you don't want internet? Right. Again, some older people, old school. I want a computer to be a computer, not an external communication device. Right. Yeah. I want my programs to work without require Wi-Fi connectivity. So I hear what you're saying there.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's one of my fears that internet might go down either by an attack or a cable might break. I mean, it's just under the sea somewhere.
An EMP attack eventually. As the author of Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, I don't go into cyber attacks or EMP attacks, but those are very real and plausible. And we're so dependent on our electrical grid, too. We need a real infrastructure bill in Washington, not all this money laundering garbage, to actually harden and update our grid, because we are so dependent on electricity now. If it's out for more than an hour, people are like, oh my God, the world is ending.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the internet as well. I mean, in the 90s, let's say someone cut a cable to the internet, no one would care or even know anything. Maybe like some college somewhere would worry. But if the internet went down in 2026, it would basically be a terrorist attack.
Yeah, like Chicken Little, right? This guy is
we couldn't communicate with people anymore, because in the 90s and in the 80s, because internet's bandwidth was so limited, there were other competing networks that people were using. I read about how people actually downloaded computer programs from the radio, where they'd send out the computer code and it would demodulate it on the modem on their computer. Or they'd use like the phone network, which kind of works as internet, but they use like a T1 network or a satellite network. I just read an article about VSATs and how what's the company? Walmart uses those to manage all of their stores across the nation. But right now, everything is connected to the internet. So I think that we need a third network, something that could work in time of attack, or if the internet were to go down, or even if you just want something else to compete with the internet.
Again, 63. I was in IT in the late 80s when, the big bulky desktops. I mainly dealt with mainframes and mid-range computers. But so, yeah, I remember the 300 baud modem dial-up days.
Yeah. They also provided for remote access if you could just plug into your local network instead of having to connect to Wi-Fi or something. And everyone had a phone, so it was basically free. Now you have to pay for a phone and internet.
Yeah, those are separate entities. Well, you can squeak by with voice over IP, and not have a phone if you wanted to. You have some sort of use your computer just as the interactive device to then voice over IP. But I think we got in the weeds a little bit for some people's tastes here. Some people, whole lot of fellow nerds out there are going to love this show, though. Well, thank you, Mizell. The time has just flown by. I appreciate having the conversation. Got to ask the closing question. If people want to find you, what's your website? We got to give that out.
It's techboy.org. So if you see it in the name, there's a spell like the .org, and you can find everything else on the About page and media pages, which is just in the header of the website.
Now, the Tech Boy or Tech Boy?
It's
So the Tech Boy, again, TTB is the theme there, thetechboy.org. All right, great talking to you, Mizell. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me on.
Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help. Thank you for having tuned into another Constitutionalist podcast show. I really appreciate that you stopped by. Again, please like, share, subscribe. We need you to help spread the Constitutionalist movement. Thank you again. Take care. God bless. Love you all.